This is the UI prototype presentation from Software Engineering 826, Team 5, Miroslav Arsov, Randall Smith, and Christina Vogler. We are here today to present the Journey Road Trip application, Planning Road Trips Faithfully. Our motivation for developing this app is simple. Road trips are fun, but planning them can be a lot of work. Where should I go? What route should I take? What stop should I make? Let's face it, even executing road trips can be challenging. From travel accidents to road work, unexpected toll plazas, and trying to find a gas station. Many road trippers will turn to the World Wide Web for help. They rely on a multitude of different websites to guide them. Google Maps, TripAdvisor, Priceline, Expedia, and Urban Spoon, to name a few. But gathering information from so many disparate and sometimes conflicting sources is time-consuming. Road trips themselves are generally not the fastest means of travel. Why waste unnecessary time navigating browser windows when you could be navigating the road? Why miss that really cool bumper sticker that just went past because you were on Yelp looking for a nearby restaurant? This leads to frustration amongst road trippers and often leaves them lacking the information that they need to make informed decisions before and during their trip. Road trippers need an application to manage all aspects of their road trip from a single interface, a one-stop shop, so to speak. Our solution is the Journey Road Trip app. I would like to mention some of our high-level goals. First and foremost, our goal is to offer a simple and easy-to-use interface that enables the user to accomplish some essential use cases. The user must be able to plan a route, to find an accommodation or other point of interest, and to enter some user ratings. Our next goal is to develop an interface that meets the needs of our target users, that is, teens and adults aged 13 to 65, primarily in the United States and Canada. We will make considerations as necessary for users with physical limitations and/or minimal education. Thirdly, our interface should address the key environmental constraints associated with this app. This includes the need to access the application while on the go and with frequent interruptions, such as to receive an incoming call on a mobile device. And finally, the trip should offer some novel or splash features like social media interaction and trip journaling. We felt that this would help the Journey application stand out amongst others, and it may more fully engage our users. The remainder of today's presentation will showcase the user interface of the Journey app. We will demonstrate 9 specific use cases and identify the usability concepts that have been incorporated into the design. The specific use cases that we will be covering today include navigating the main menu, account maintenance and profile, planning a trip, finding a point of interest, finding a hotel, adding or displaying a rating, executing a trip, interactions with social media, and creating a trip journal. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of the presentation. The following section demonstrates accessing the Journey application and navigating the main menu. I will start the Journey app using the application icon on the mobile device. Notice that the icon is consistent with the logo that you see on the splash screen. This helps the user recognize the Journey app more quickly, and when they see the splash screen, it confirms to them that they have opened the correct application. This is the Journey main screen. Notice that we have chosen not to display the Journey logo on each screen. We felt that the benefit of doing so that is user recognition, did not outweigh the cost, that is the use of valuable visual real estate. The main screen defaults to a map image of the user's current location. Along the top of the screen, we see commonly recognized icons. The plus icon to start a new trip, the profile icon to view or edit the current user profile, the question mark icon for a context-sensitive help menu, and the classical pull-down menu icon shown in the top left. Several of the common map viewing options are also provided. Along the bottom of the screen, moving from left to right, we have the trip editor, social media interaction, execute a trip, the trip journal, and the point of interest finder. Notice that the text and icons are of sufficient size. This is in accordance with our user needs. Moving on to the pull-down menu in the top left. Note that this menu is context sensitive. For the purposes of this demonstration, all the options are enabled. In the event that a menu item is not supported, such as to execute a trip if none is saved, a menu item would be disabled by graying it out. First, we see Login and Create an Account. These will be discussed in further detail in the next section of the presentation. Next, the Settings item. This is a place to specify properties that are global and apply to all users. The Parental Control option was added to restrict features that are not intended for underage users. For example, these users may have privileges to find a point of interest, but they cannot change the route of a trip or make hotel reservations. The language setting is also important, particularly for users in Northern Canada who are French-speaking. The distance units can be set to either miles, which is common in the US, or kilometers, which is common in Canada and throughout Europe. Back to the menu. The Export Trip option is provided to output the itinerary to a PDF for offline viewing. This was in support of our task analysis, where a user could lose cellular or wireless signal during a trip, and therefore may like to have a hard copy of the details of their route. The next item is to view the wish list. This is a feature that will be described in more detail later, essentially a repository for places I'd like to go someday. The trophy section is accessible from the pull-down menu. This feature is designed to engage users who are less motivated. The application will keep track of various achievements the user has received. Examples of user achievements include the Newbie Award for a user who has completed one trip, and the King of the Road Award for the user who has completed 5 or more road trips. The remaining items on the list are duplications of actions that can also be accessed using the icons at the top and bottom of the screen. We decided to duplicate the access because they are frequently used operations, and some users may be more accustomed to the tree-based menu until they recognize the icons. Last but not least is the customary About Journey item. One thing of interest to point out here, we do plan to include a disclaimer to warn the user about the risks of using the app while driving a car. This was one of the few safety concerns that arose from our task analysis. One final feature that I would like to mention, there is a help menu available at the top of the page. At a minimum, this will include some basic information about planning and editing a route and the other journey features as well. We'll also plan to include an a legend of the icons that are used throughout the application, particularly those that are on the main screen. We chose to place the icon on the main screen and not under the pull-down menu so that it would be even more visible and accessible to the user. This completes the demonstration of the main menu.
Hello, welcome to the Journey road trip application. Journey, creating road trips faithfully. This portion of the demo, we will review the account maintenance screens. The Journey application is available to both non-authenticated and authenticated users. Why would one, if it's available to non-authenticated users, then why would one want to create an account anyway? There are some advantages to creating an account. Those advantages are, number one, when a user creates an account, they gain the ability to save and recall road trips in the future. They can also, when they're creating a new road trip, they can base that new road trip off existing road trips. For the non-authenticated user, they can use the system, they can create a road trip, but they're unable to store it. They need to create it and execute it all in the same session. The second advantage to creating an account is the fact that the user can store profile information about them. This is information that is used in the creation of the road trips. Examples of profile information would be the type of roads they like to drive on, whether they're an off-road person, they want to see the scenic routes, or if they want highway, if they want faster time or shorter distance, the type of hotels they like, the minimum ratings that the hotels need to be. All this information is defined and stored within the user's profile, and it's automatically pulled up on the creation of a road trip. This minimizes the number of keystrokes that the user needs to take in order to get through the whole trip planning process and get to the execution. In this demo, we're going to first demo portions of the account maintenance user interface. Those portions are the creation and maintenance of the account and the profile information, how a user authenticates to the Journey application, both logging in and logging out, and finally we will review account recovery. If the user ever forgets their username or their password, that information can be recalled as long as they know the email address that they used when they created the account. The final portion of the account maintenance demo, we're going to run back through the user interface and just discuss some of the design considerations that Team 5 made when we were creating these screens. We will discuss some of the design alternatives that we had available to us and why we chose what we did, and also the type of principles that we tried to apply in the design of the interface. This is the Journey main screen. That has been, the layout of the main screen has already been discussed in another section, so I will not go into those details. However, in order to log in, the end user uses the context-sensitive pull-down menu screen, or the icon that's located in the upper left-hand corner. This icon is always going to be in the upper left-hand corner, so there will be recognition, and the user will know where to go in order to get the pull-down menu. The user can also select the profile icon to get to their profile, but we're going to run in through the pull-down menu. So having selected that, our pull-down menu from the non-authenticated main screen comes up. Here we notice we can create an account at this point, or we can try to log in. I'm going to choose to log in so you can see the login screen. Here's the login screen. Very basic, very common information that's required here. Username and password. There are options to create a new account if one doesn't exist, which is our situation right now. Or if we have created an account, there's a way in which we can recover the password off to the right. I'll be demonstrating that just in just a bit. And then we have two buttons located at the bottom, the login or the cancel. One of the things we always tried to do in the design of the user interface is to always have the positive path on the left-hand side. That's always the save, the login, the one where we're taking a positive action, where the cancellation is always on the right-hand side. So at this point, I'm going to click the Create New Account. That brings us to the Create Account screen. Basic information we have here and just the creation of the account. Those are the 4 fields that are located at the top. Required is you need to provide an email address. This email address is used in the password and account recovery, as well as it's used by the Journey creator, the designers, to get information out to the Journey community on new releases, etc. The user then specifies an account name. It's pretty much whatever they want, as long as it's not already used. When they select the create account, there is a check done against the Journey database for any accounts that currently have that. And if there is one that exists, they will be notified of that. And then they're requested that if they need to recover the account, they can select the forgot password. They also need to enter a password for the account, and as the indication is below, it has to be a minimum of 8 characters. That's the only restriction we put on it. They need to enter the password twice for verification. That's pretty common on all applications. That's the guarantee that the user hasn't accidentally what we call fat-fingered a couple keys. So in this way, at least they need to enter the password twice, and that needs to be identical in order for it to take. Down below, we start into the profile information. This will be information on the account, on your preferences. You can provide a profile picture. This picture is displayed at the top center of the Journey screen upon successful login, as well as a name in which you're going to be referred to. This name's used throughout the system, as well as when you're connecting to social media, or if you're executing a join trip. This information becomes valuable. There is also an opportunity for the Journey user to specify their home location. Home has a very significant role in the Journey road trip application. Home can be generated in a single entry as a destination. The user needs to specify country, locality, which would be a locality would be such as city-state, a postal code, and as well as an address. We use the term locality so that we could support multiple countries. This application does work outside the North American, or actually the United States borders, so locality was included for that reason. There is a lot more information down below. That's the reason why the vertical scroll bar is located to the right. Let's go to the next, or actually the first thing I want to do is I want to enter all the account information, and we happen to be entering for Jamie Swanson. That's her profile pic there, and she's living in Kansas City, Missouri. And let's set up some more information for Jamie. So we will hit the down scroll. So we have, on our next portion of the profile, we have our road trip preferences. We've noticed Jamie has selected that she prefers a faster time than a shorter distance. She also prefers highway travel to secondary roads. Jamie also specified driving preferences. In this, we're specifying, the journey user specifies approximately how many hours do they like to travel per day. In this case, Jamie says 7 hours will about do it for her. And then also there's an indication to the right as to how much leeway she's willing to give on that 7 hours. That's a plus or minus value of a half hour. So we're talking about a range between 6.5 and 7.5 hours is basically what Jamie is saying she would want to travel in any given day. The journey user also can enter the number of miles that they're willing to travel per day. In this case, Jamie indicated she's willing to travel 500 miles per day, give or take a 50 miles. So we're talking 450 to 550 miles. The next profile below is Jamie's restaurant preferences. She really hasn't indicated any preference for rating or pricing, but she has indicated she likes Italian. And then she has added the Olive Garden to her list of preferred restaurants. If she chose to, she could add a minimum rating between 1 and 5 stars, as well as a minimum and a maximum price per plate that she's willing to spend. There is another. Let's scroll down once more, and now we've come to the hotel preferences. She's actually has specified that she likes a 4-star hotel, and that the maximum she's willing to spend for this 4-star hotel is $125, and she likes Marriott. So the road trip information will pull this information up. If she ever indicates that she needs a hotel stay, it will favor the Marriotts at those conditions. The final profile area that's listed here is the alert preferences. Alerts are when executing a road trip, when you're in the middle of a road trip. The user has the option of allowing the road trip application to let them know asynchronously that they are within so many miles of either an unscheduled or a scheduled itinerary stop. There are 2 indicators here. Well, the first indicator is the default setting. Whenever they start a road trip, how do they want the alert setting to start? Do they want it to default to the on, or do they want it to default to the off? This saves them a keystroke when they're in the execution of a road trip. The next thing is that they can specify the number of miles that they will be notified that they're within a certain distance of a scheduled location or an unscheduled location. The scheduled location is it's whatever's in their itinerary. In this case, whenever Jamie's within 10 miles of one of her scheduled itinerary stops, it will throw up a message that says, hey, you're almost there. You've got 10 miles to go. In the case of the unscheduled stop, this is sort of an interesting feature where Jamie can specify that she's willing to go 60 miles out of her way if there's an interesting museum or if there's an interesting national monument that's on her road. Once again, this will come up whenever she breaches that 60-mile. A message pops up and says basically, hey, Jamie, you're within 60 miles of the Grand Cavern or whatever the national monument is, or the state park. So that's a nice little feature. So once again, we're going to create the account. Notice that, as I indicated before, the positive, the creation is on the left, the cancel's on the right. We're going to create this account. So the account's created, and now we're back to the login screen, and Jamie's account name's put in, and then we need to fill in her password, which is hidden for security reasons. You don't know if somebody's looking over your shoulder. They don't want to grab your password. And then we're gonna attempt to log in here. And it's okay. Jamie's logged in. There's her profile pic up top with the account name. So she's ready to go. So that's the account creation and the login. Let's hit now on the log out, which, remember I said this is context sensitive help. So once we're in the logged in state, we pull down and the login option is no longer available. It's only a log out. So if we want to log out, Jamie can click on her log out button and she receives a confirmation screen, positive to the left, negative to the right. If she chooses that, I selected the wrong thing, I want to cancel, she goes back to the main screen. She's still logged in, as indicated by her profile pic. This time, though, we really want to log her out. So we will confirm the log out. And she's logged out. Now, Jamie hasn't used the app in a year, and she comes to log in, and she can't remember her account or her password. So if she clicks on the forgot password, she's brought into this account recovery forgot password screen where she needs to enter in the email that she specified when she created the account. Once she types that in and clicks the email password, the account name and password are emailed to her. She can get on her email through her phone or through a PC, and then type this information, and she will be logged in. So let's log her in again. Voila, she's back in. If we can talk a little bit now about the design considerations that we used in the layout of the account maintenance. The principle of consistency is at work here pretty much throughout the system. You'll notice all the screens had in the upper left-hand corner, the context-sensitive menu. That's always going to be available from every screen, and the contents of the pull-down will be reflected based on the main or the screen that is available. Also, the icons at the bottom for journaling, for executing a road trip, for searching for points of interest, those all are consistently available down at the bottom as well. With respect to the login screen, we wanted to be consistent, as I pointed out earlier, that your positive path selections were always pushed to the left. The negative, the cancels, the back out, those are to the right. So if I go to the account creation screens, we attempted to, or at least this screen demonstrates the principle of importance. Our most important stuff is right up top. It's listed there. Those 4 elements are really 3 with one's duplicated. Those are the most important part of the account creation process. So those are right up front. Then with respect to the profile, we attempted to make sure that the perceptual organization was prevalent. Stuff that's grouped together, we tried to put into group boxes. For example, all the fields that are wrapped in the where is home are related to the home, and through that grouping and that physical restriction, that physical boundary, we know that those all relate to home, as well as on the next level out, the profile. The profile picture, the user's home, those are all related together. And if we go to the next screen, which was, those are all grouped as well. Restaurant preferences, everything inside there is related to the restaurant. Driving preferences. An interesting note on the driving preferences, we had a bit of a, originally the driving preferences were expressed in terms of max and min. What's the maximum hours you want to drive? What's the minimum hours you want to drive? And then there was 2, I guess you call them thumb wheels, where the user would either scroll that number up or scroll the number down. Through discussions, number one, we felt that was a bit confusing. There was opportunity for error there, in that they could potentially put in a maximum that's below the minimum. That's something we'd have to trigger on. Instead, the consensus was that there might be a better way to present this to the end user that's more meaningful and less error prone. And that was this concept of, let's just spell it out. How many hours do you want to drive a day? And what's your tolerance? I mean, is it 7 hours with 0 tolerance? I mean, that's it. That's your minimum, your maximum. Or you can give it a little bit of leeway. We felt that this type of control versus the max and the min, 2 separate thumb scrolls, was a little bit more intuitive. I'll use that word to the end user. It reads more as English, so it's more understandable. The same principle of organization applies to the final screen, where everything is grouped. And notice we're still talking about profile preferences. So once we create the account, there was the whole forgot password. With respect to the forgot password, there was a number of design decisions we could make here. We chose to keep it as simple as possible. Just enter the email address and we'll mail it to you. Under consideration was the whole security questions. We felt this was the most simplistic and the most understandable for the end user. That number one, an end user will have access to their email address, and number two, that a user will remember their email address that they used when they set up the account. So there's always an issue where they may have changed their email address and no longer have access to that address. In that case, they're going to have to create a new account anyway. So that concludes the presentation on the account maintenance. Thank you. Welcome to the next section of the Journey Road Trip application demonstration. Journey, creating road trips faithfully. In this section, we will discuss the plan a road trip use case. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the user interface, how a user launches into the Journey Road Trip planning function, establishing baseline locations and timing around their road trip, editing any itinerary items, and also viewing the routes. After that, we're going to go back through the user interface and discuss any UI design considerations that we came upon during the design of the application. Here we're back at the main menu, or the main screen for the Journey Road Trip application. Just a reminder, it is a mobile application as indicated on the screen. We are logged in as Jamie Swanson. She's been the account we've set up, and we're going to use her account to create a road trip that takes us from Kansas City, Missouri to a location in Texas. I believe it's El Paso. So in order to create a new road trip, the user would go and click the plus button. The plus button is a standard icon that's used for create new. We're using recognition there. So they click the plus button and it takes them to the road trip planner process. The first control I want to talk about is the road trip plan navigator control. It's located at the top of the screen. It's very prominent. One of the feedback, or some of the feedback that we got on our demos related to in the creation of a road trip, the indication was that the user didn't quite understand the flow of what they were doing when they were moving through the road trip planner. This control is an attempt to organize all that information so that the user can see exactly where they are in the road trip process. The control is much like a breadcrumb type control, with the difference being that the series that's presented represents all of the steps that they can go through to create a road trip. And it also, there's an indicator here as to the current step they are in. So from the main menu, if we want to describe this very quickly, the main menu, they run through a naming process where they want to name their road trip, and we'll go over those options shortly. There's baseline criteria then the user needs to provide, and that is basic location information and timing information, and we'll go through that shortly. If they choose to, they can actually set up some itinerary if they want to have any overnight stays, if they want to plan any down days where they can maybe take a few days at a location and see some museums, etc. That is followed by a route editor. Based on their preferences that were established when they created the account, the Journey Road Trip Planner will provide a basic route that meets that criteria, but they have the option, the user has the option to go in and edit the route if they choose. And finally, at the end of the whole process, they can save. One thing you'll notice is that in this breadcrumb control, you can, not only does it tell you where you are, you can also fast forward to any of these areas. You can go back. Maybe you want to change one of your locations. Maybe you want to edit your itinerary. You can move back and forth in this editor and modify that information all before you save. Two other controls I want to point out here is there is a next control and a back control. As you can see at the very beginning, the back control is going to be grayed out, but the next control would take the user to the next step in the process. At any point, they can decide to save. They don't necessarily have to create itinerary. They don't have to create a route. They can just have Journey provide all that information based on their preferences, and then they can go right to execution. So let's talk a little bit about the name of the road trip. The user has a number of options here. As Jamie right now is planning a road trip for her cousin Raleigh's graduation. So she's named it Trips for Raleigh's Graduation. Some of the other options that they have in this screen is if they want to clone one of if she wants to clone one of her existing road trips, she can by selecting an existing road trip and then selecting the copy. She can also view any of these road trips if she wants to see exactly what was the itinerary and what happened during those. But in this case, we're just going to start a new road trip. So we'll hit the Create a Road Trip button. And you notice now we've advanced from name to the criteria phase. Now this is where we're providing some of the baseline information for the road trip. We have a starting location. We have a destination location we need to provide. There's also, we need to provide a start date. All of these fields are going to be required, and they're the minimum required fields that we need. If the user chooses to, they can go right to save at this point, having created or entered this information, and they can save it and then actually execute if they choose. But let's take a look at the location selector. If the user selects this information out, or this box button control out to the right, they're taken to a location selector. And as a bare minimum, they need to select the country. They need to give a locality, which in this case it's Atlanta, Georgia, which is what's provided here. And then they can provide postal code and a street address. If they choose to, they can specify coordinates as where they want to go. And also, in addition, if they're feeling lucky, they're not quite sure where they want to go, they can click this Get Suggestion button, which will be discussed in a later presentation. So at this point, we're going to go back to our criteria screen. One of the other things I'd want to point out on this screen is that there is a date picker control for wherever they see the calendar icon here, they can click and it will pull down a calendar for them to select a date from. Basically, we're going after a control that where the user can recognize readily what a date is, and they can very easily, they've seen calendars before, and they can select the calendar date right out and have that date selected. Like I said, it occurs on all controls that have the calendar picker on. These next two fields are not required. However, if they choose to, they can specify, well, in this first section that they're indicating how long they want the trip to go. And there's a number of different ways in which they can choose how long the trip will be. They can choose a hard end date. They have to be at a certain place at a certain date. So if they choose this control, they can select specify end date and specify that date. They have other options they could choose. They could choose the total number of days they want to travel. They can say basically, in this case, Jamie wants to take 3 days to get to her destination, and she's giving it a leeway of 1 day either way. So that's saying that the Journey road trip planner could take either 2 to 4 days, depending upon what she feels. If they choose to, Jamie could select the driving hours that she wants to run, that she wants to drive per day. She gives it in terms of hours, and she gives a give or take value there as well. In this case, she's saying she's willing to drive 6 hours, give or take a half hour on either side. So she can drive anywhere between 5.5 hours to 6.5 hours. Or if she chooses to, she can specify the number of miles that she can drive in any given day. In this case, she's saying 300 miles with a 50-mile plus or minus around that. All these options are grouped together with radio buttons. The radio button in a group box is understood to be to have mutual exclusion. So only one of these options can be selected at any given time. Then on the bottom here, we have a control called non-travel days. This is how they would use this control to specify specific days that they do not want to do any travel. So if, example, let's say we specified, well, in this case, she's choosing to go from January 31st to February 6th, which is a 6-7 day trip. If she chooses to, she could specify a non-travel day, say on December 2nd, Groundhog Day. They want to hang out with Punxsutawney Phil or whatever. She can specify that in here, and the Journey Road Trip Itinerary Planner will take that into account. This is a editable control. To add a new date, Jamie would simply hit the add non-travel date. It would add another date into the mix. Or if she chooses to, she wants to remove one of the days, she can hit the remove button here. If more days are added, then there is space to display them. Vertical control will show up. So why don't we next go to the view itinerary, and this takes us to our itinerary editor. So once again, we've moved forward our controls with the itinerary editor. And I just wanted to show you that if I wanted to move back, I could move forward again, go back to the itinerary. So these controls are working on the screen. Now in this case, we're on the itinerary editor. This is where they add all of the extras that they want to add into the system. When they create the itinerary from the criteria screen, Journey will do some calculations based on number of days that are going to be traveling, and it will place holders in here for any hotel stays or any overnighters, as we call them, for their road trip. It'll always put in a road trip beginning and road trip end. You can't see the beginning up here because it's scrolled off. We have a vertical scroll here. But you can see there's the end road trip, and she's got one hotel stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Wichita Falls, Texas. And the final destination she's targeting is San Antonio, Texas. We're going from Kansas City to San Antonio, Texas. It's a 2-day trip. So, and she's also added a food stop in Wichita, Kansas for the Olive Garden, and also in that same vicinity she's going to use Jim's Sunoco to gas up her car. One thing I want to point out here is on any of the points of interest here, you can click the details and bring up details on this itinerary stop. So in here we're showing that this is a food types itinerary item. Given a date, it lists the Olive Garden and where it's at. And also it will provide you any rating information on that. Now, if you choose to, if you want to add another itinerary item, the user would use the plus control, and that would invoke the point of interest finder. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that. There is a separate section in the demonstration that will go over the point of interest searcher selector. So I'm going to leave that at that point. A couple other functions we want to look at here is not only can they hit the plus, they could also hit the insert to add another itinerary item. If they want to change the order, you notice there are numbers here. They can either change the numbers and reorder, or they can grab these boxes and drag them. The only ones that can't move are the trip start and the trip end. Those are endpoints, and those have to remain the same, although those can be edited in this control as well. If the numbering system is used for reordering, the user has to hit reorder to jumble them. Having finished her itinerary, she will now select the control to define her route. So you notice that once again we've advanced. So this is where we're at now in the trip planning process. It is calculated based on her itinerary items and her endpoints, and plus her preferences for road travel, whether she likes highways or off-road. It has made the selection. If she chooses to, she can grab the route and alter it to make interesting stops in other locations, like maybe was this Wichita Falls. She might be able to drag it over here and run through Wichita Falls. The map control here is a plus and minus for zoom in and zoom out. That's recognizable pretty much with any. And just to point out that since this is a mobile device, the operating system will support all the zoom in, zoom out controls, where you can take two fingers on the screen, pull them apart to zoom in, push them back together to zoom out. That's all given in the mobile device. At this point, she's happy with it. She's going to hit the save button to go to the save screen. So we're at the last step of the process, and we're going to save it. So the options now that Jamie has is she can either save, which takes her back to saves the road trip and takes her back to the main menu. She can actually save and go right to the execute control, or else she can cancel and get out. So we're just going to save to get back. So now we're going to review some of our design considerations. The main one that I'm going to point out was basically this breadcrumb control, which I've already talked about. The feedback that we got from the user community of those people who had reviewed the application, there was a lot of confusion around defining the road trip and how all the screens tied together. So we felt it was important that the end user during this process always know where they were in the process and what they had left to do. And that's essentially what this breadcrumb control achieves. And then in addition, the breadcrumb control basically allows them to jump back and forth in this, so they can adjust information as they see fit. So if at this point they've entered their criteria, they want to go right to the route, see what the route would be, and then go back to itinerary, add a couple items, and then go back to the the route, they could do that. Or from the criteria screen, if they choose to, they could actually, if they would like to, they could go and hit the save button to end the whole process. So they have a lot of options here, and they can jump back and forth in the control. A couple other things. The use of group boxes so that like information is all contained together. That is demonstrating the law of proximity. So we know that everything that's inside this box is related to the navigation controls for the road trip. And this is a one-stop shop for all that information. Anything in here indicates that this is all related information for creating a new road trip. And then also under the use existing road trip, if they want to copy, it's very straightforward. They select one of the existing ones. They hit the copy if they want to create a copy of it. Or actually they can just view that one to see if that's one they actually do want to copy or not. There was, I pointed out in the create account, when it came to the minimum and maximum controls, we used to have, I think they call them thumb scrolls, where they would provide a minimum number of days and a maximum number of days. And through discussion with the team, we decided that could be somewhat confusing. So instead, we tried to express this in more terms that we felt the end user would understand, and we use these drop-down type controls. So now, when the user sees the number of days they want to travel, they specify how many days they want to take to get there, and they give an allowance of half-day increments, whether journey can take a half day less, a half day more, or even more. That goes with all of these controls. Also, with the calendar control, we were going after the recognition aspect, that users that enter dates can more readily understand picking from a calendar. And the calendar is actually pretty nice too, because then you can see all the days in relation to days of the week, so then they can plan their trip. It's a very powerful control. With respect to the itinerary screen, we liked the grouping of the itinerary items here, in that you could grab them and move them in relation to each other. You could reorder them that way. Also, the universal X in the corner, you can guess that would be, this is some item I want to remove. I guess the final thing I'd just like to talk about is the use of the visual map control for displaying the route. This is a very powerful tool in that they can see exactly in relation to each other what their travel is going to be and where their itinerary items are located on the map. In general, we tried to always keep the same rule of thumb when it came to the positive type controls and the negative type controls. The positive path type controls where you want to save, it's the yes side, if you will, to the left, and the cancel to the right. That is pretty much universal with user interfaces. Basically, the user expects to see the positive control on the left. It's pretty much a universal. The OK is always on the left. The cancel is always on the right. So we tried to keep that in mind. The last thing you want to do is reverse that on them because they're not expecting to see it. With that concludes the presentation on the plan a route for the Journey road trip planner. Thank you. Welcome to the next section of the Journey application demo. Journey, creating road trips faithfully. In this section of the demo, we're going to review the execution of a road trip along with the rating of an accommodation. It's two use cases we're going to cover in this single demonstration. We'll start off by going over the user interface. We'll talk about launching the application, selecting a road trip for execution, executing it, how the user interacts with the inactive road trip, displaying of alerts, as well as covering the rating use case. We'll then go over design considerations that were factored into the design of the user interface. And then we're going to end up by talking about future enhancements. These are plans, these are enhancements that are planned in the upcoming releases of the Journey road trip application that will better make the experience on the user's part more enjoyable, more useful. So we launch the application from our mobile device, and then we move through the splash screen, and we eventually arrive on the user interface. Previous demos have covered the creation of an account and logging in. So we'll quickly move through that, and we'll get our individual. It's Jamie Swanson we've been using. We'll get her logged in, and we'll use one of her existing road trips. So there we have Jamie is logged in. At this point, she's in the car, she's ready to go. She decides that, okay, she's going to start the application. She wants to launch one of her road trips. So she clicks on the auto icon at the lower bottom, and it brings her to the execute road trip screen. This screen shows a list of the road trips that Jamie currently has available to her. The one that we created in the demo and the one we're going to use is the road trip for her cousin Raleigh, who's graduating in El Paso, Texas, and Jamie lives in Kansas, so let's select that road trip. We then select the Let's Go button. We're ready to roll, and bingo. This represents the execute screen. It is an interactive screen. That provides a car icon showing where Jamie currently is at and the path that she's going to take on her journey. Now we've zoomed in a bit because Jamie's getting around Wichita, Kansas, and she had a couple itinerary items listed that she was going to take advantage of in Wichita, which was a stop at the Olive Garden and a stop at Jim Sunoco. So if we break down the interactive screen when we're executing a road trip, we have all the same controls at the top, the pull down menu, the help, and the add if she wants to add a new item to her itinerary. This is a context sensitive add. She has a way of getting to her profile information. It's listing what trip she's actually executing, and then it's listing an interactive map. Down below is where all your alerts come up, traffic alerts, vicinity alerts, as well as upcoming itinerary items that are getting close on her screen. If you recall from the account setup, you can set up this information so that you'll get an alert when you get in X number of miles of one of your itinerary items. And those come up in the alerts area. It also provides us with any traffic-related information on our selected route, and the indication here is that 200 miles ahead of us on Route 236, we're going to have a significant delay. So if we choose to, we can have the Journey road trip application reroute us now, or we can wait till we get closer for it to reroute us. Any itinerary items that are within the vicinity or within the map area are displayed with flags on our route. They're also displayed down below. And so through association with the numbers, we can see what those itinerary items are. This was done this way mainly because of the limited space we have on the map. But there's a clear association between the itinerary info that's displayed in the text box down below and the location of the flags on the route. This map interacts as any other map on a mobile device. Zoom in, zoom out through the two-finger controls. Spreading the fingers wider apart zooms in, pushing them closer together will allow you to zoom out to see the whole, more of the route. If we want to obtain any detailed information on the itinerary, we can simply click on that item. I'll click on the Olive Garden item now, and then it brings up item detail for that particular item. And then to return, we simply go back, and we're back at the main screen. One of the things I'd like to point out is the second use case at this point. If we go back to the Olive Garden, the detail information does give us an opportunity to rate the Olive Garden if we choose to. To rate the item, we simply click rate, and then it comes up with a rate accommodation. Jamie's decided to give it a 2. She wasn't enthralled with the service. She thought the prices were a little bit steep. So she's providing her rating control here, her comments here. There's a large text area for her to put her comments into. And then there's a share rating control. With all your ratings, anyone has the opportunity to select the privacy of that rating. They basically can either keep it to themselves, so only they can view it, only their account can view it. If they choose to, they can only share it with other Journey community members. And the Journey community is made up of individuals excuse me, that have accounts. So this information would not be shared with the user who does not have an account and is not logged in. Or Jamie has the option, which she's chosen, to share the rating with everybody. That includes Journey accounts as well as the casual guest type user. If Jamie's interested, there are 10 reviews out there on this Olive Garden. She can click that so she can read the reviews, and here we have the reviews. We're viewing 4 of them with the ratings. Notice that we did say there's 10, so that there's a vertical scroll, so that Jamie is given the option to scroll through all of these to read them. To return to her rating screen, she hits return. And then eventually to submit the rating, she can hit the submit button. That takes her back to the details screen, and then she can return back to the trip in progress. If at any point Jamie wants to stop the route, she has that ability through hitting the stop route button. Let's do that, and that returns her to the main screen. I'd like to now just review some of the design considerations that we considered when designing this interface. Most importantly on this screen is that we have the list of road trips that Jamie has available to her to execute on. And we applied the principle that it's easier for Jamie to recognize her road trip from a list than having to recall it. So instead of having an empty text box where she had to type in or search even, we felt it was better if we provided her with all the information and allowed her to select. She chose the names for these, so they obviously have some sort of pertinence to her. So she would have, she'd be able to select the road trip that she does want to execute. On the principle that users see what they expect to see, we placed the OK or the Go control on the left, because typically in all applications, the positive path is located on the left, and the negative path is on the right. Had we considered the reverse, then we felt that would create too much confusion. In addition, we tried to keep a consistent interface. We always have the same basic controls along the top and along the bottom. Jamie can readily recognize that it's her account that's logged in. She sees her own portrait. There's the context-sensitive menu pull down and the plus button here, which is the add. And in this context, she could use that to add yet another road trip. Once again, if we view the on the actual execution of the road trip, we're using the principle of consistency, as I stated before, with the same controls available to them and all of this. In this case, the plus would mean you want to add something to the road trip. And we're also providing the association between these points of interest that they've selected and what they are. Being careful not to obscure the roadmap that is available here. If they had created a very busy itinerary and they were doing a lot in Wichita, had we placed this information up here, it would have obscured a lot of the map screen, making it totally useless. We also used color in this case to try to enhance certain alerts, and it's using the principle of importance. Red signifies something, an alert, something to watch out for, something that could be dangerous. And in this case, we're talking about a delay, although it be 200 miles down the road. If it was closer, it would be in a brighter shade of red. Right now, it's in a somewhat dull shade, so it's catching their attention, but it is indicating that it has a ways to go before it actually becomes an issue. The principle of proximity, we, as in with the rest of the application, we use group boxes to group like information together. Also, the horizontal scrolls in all cases will be located on the right. That's what the user that's where the user expects to see vertical scrolls. And in this way, too, we can use a vertical scroll to hide, limit the amount of information so it doesn't obscure the map, but also give the user the ability to access that information readily through a simple swipe of the finger. with the rating detail page, I won't talk about some of the items that are consistent across all, because I've gone over those enough. But in this, the detail item page, it does provide the basic information about the item that they're selecting. It gives a price rating, industry rating, and the journey rating on the overall system. Down here, it would actually give the location of the restaurant on the map. To rate the item, if we go over here, once again, we're using the principle of proximity. One of the design changes that we did make had to do with the sharing of the information. Originally, the original designs of this was to keep sharing for only the authenticated journey user, that all guest type users would not have the ability to see any ratings. But we reconsidered that and then added these 3 options to allow the end user some flexibility with how the ratings that they provide can be used. So if they really want to say some negative comments, but they really are they want to keep this to themselves, so next time they're through the area, they can remind themselves that, hey, I really don't want to stop here ever again. They do have that option to keep it to themselves. The controls here for reading all the views. Once again, we have the main heading up top, the scroll bar to the right, very basic controls, returning to get us back to the screen. And then once we want to submit the rating, the submit's on the left, the cancel's on the right, and the return. So the only other thing I want to talk about now is some future considerations. One important feature that we're planning on is to have, and I'll stay on this page, was to have the something that's called a wish list. The user could actually create a wish list of certain types of things that they like. I think you may have seen some of the wish list items on this in the profile setup. You can specify that you like certain museums. You can be very specific. State parks, certain types of restaurants, certain hotels, pretty much any point of interest you can place in your wish list. And then as you're executing the trip, Journey is constantly monitoring your position in relation to some points of interest that you've specified you may like. So what would happen is, as you get within the defined distance, which, if you remember from the profile screen, once you get within that radius of that particular point of interest, an alert will pop up here that will basically indicate that you're within 50 miles of the largest ball of yarn in the United States. And then you're given the option, if you want to add that to your itinerary. It's going to be a one-click thing. The system will reroute automatically for you and then send you on your way to visit the Great Ball of Yarn. The planned icon that we're going to use for the favorites is the standard that one would always associate with favorites, and that is a heart-shaped icon. And then that heart-shaped icon would fall on the bottom of the screen. In clicking that icon, the user could specify favorites, and through that, then they can also add, remove from their favorites list. And like I said, the favorites can be as general or as specific as they want. And then as you are executing a road trip, the favorites will automatically pop up. I should point out too that the favorites, when you're executing, can be turned on or off as well. That concludes this portion of the demonstration. Thank you for your time.
This section demonstrates how to find a point of interest using the Journey application. The Point of Interest Finder can be accessed directly from the main screen for quick on-the-fly searches using the magnifying glass icon. It is also accessible from the Itinerary Planner for use while users are building their itinerary, as well as in the pull-down menu. This is the main screen for the POI Finder. Notice that the controls are grouped by function so that the user can quickly acclimate him or herself to the page. In the search criteria grouping, the user can specify a radius based on distance or by driving time. For convenience, the location defaults to the current location of the user, assuming the device has GPS capabilities. If not, or if the user would like to change the location, he or she can click on the text box and input a new zip code. The user can also enter a city, in which case Journey will use the autocomplete feature to offer suggestions as the user types. At any time, the user can select the current location icon to update the location field with current information from the device GPS. In the category grouping, there exist a number of icons for the various points of interest that a user may be interested in. Some examples include shopping, banks, campgrounds, and hospitals. Notice that the default category is gas. This was intentional since finding a gas station is a frequently used operation that should be executed with as few interactions as possible. In some cases, the user may desire additional search or filtering capabilities. For example, they may only be interested in gas stations that provide diesel fuel, or that have a car wash, or that are handicap accessible, or all of the above. Wherever these additional options exist, a pop-up menu is provided for the user to make the appropriate selections. In some cases, the search and filtering capabilities may become complex or require numerous selections, such as when searching for a hotel. In this case, a separate screen would be kicked off, and any information already entered by the user would be carried forward. Finally, in the Results section, the user can decide whether to show the results on a map or in a list format. One alternative design that was considered did not include the capability to search by category. We felt this was an oversight in the initial design, that users would like to have more relevant and focused information. This would also result in a map or list that was more user-friendly, so that users would not have to scroll through pages and pages of search results. This screen displays the results of the POI search using a map view. Each of the dropped pins represents a point of interest that met the specified search criteria. Rather than using typical pins, however, we have decided to use icons to indicate the category of the specific point of interest. In this case, trees are used to represent parks. The user would recognize these icons and quickly associate them with a category, since the same icons would be shown in the POI category selector. Notice that the user can change to the list view using the link at the bottom right. The user can navigate the map using standard map gestures, pinch to zoom, swipe to scroll, etc. The common map viewing options, map, satellite, and traffic, are provided along the top. At any point, the user can reorient the map to the current GPS location by using the bullseye. At the bottom of the screen The user can see the search criteria that were used to generate the displayed results. This demonstrates the feedback principle. Displaying the criteria makes it obvious that the search and filtering process is complete. The user now has confidence that their actions are completed. This also demonstrates the principle of recognition. So the user doesn't have to recall what they were searching for, particularly if they were interrupted, lost focus, or were working with another user. Note that the user can also choose to edit their search criteria if that is desired. From the map screen, the user can select any one of the dropped icons and get more information about that location. We provide a small thumbnail, the telephone number, an option to get directions, an option to add this location to the itinerary, and an option to add this location to the journey wish list. I would like to take a moment to briefly describe the wish list. This is a stored list of places that the user would like to visit at some point. At any time, the user can view the wish list from the pull-down menu on the main screen. When creating an itinerary, we envision that the user could select a destination from their wish list. When executing a trip, we envision that the user could be alerted when they are within some range of an item on their wish list. This completes the demonstration of the POI Finder.
A very important part of the Journey application is finding different points of interest along the trip. These points either add value to the trip experience or provide amenities along the road trip. There are many types of points of interest, ranging from the essential ones like gas stations and rest areas to the more advanced ones like hotels and various attractions. The functionality of the Find Point of Interest feature was discussed early in this presentation, so I will not go into further details. I'll just present the sequence of events that occurs when Find Hotel is selected as the point of interest of choice. In this example, I'll just select criteria for searching. A drop-down menu contains all the possible selections. In this demonstration, there are only 3, but in the real application, there might be much more. I'll select the Find Near Point of Interest within radius of 5 miles and zip code 15221. As mentioned before, hotel is one of the more complex points of interest that contains much more configuration options than a single pop-up can provide. So upon selecting the hotel icon, the user interface is navigated to a new screen specific to the Find Hotel point of interest. As a quick note, I would like to point out that entering the search criteria on the point of interest screen is optional for the hotel feature, since the details screen will provide search criteria as well. If the search criteria are populated on the point of interest screen, the same search criteria will be pre-filled in the appropriate location in the Find Hotel accommodation screen. This is designed to reduce the work required by the user by specifying defaults where appropriate. There are multiple sections on this screen, grouped by specific functionality. The first and most important is specifying the dates that we need the hotel accommodations. Let's select some dates that incidentally correspond to my upcoming vacation. From personal experience, when planning, it's easier to see a calendar where it's very clear what days are weekends rather than try to figure out without one, so all the date selections are done with the help of a date picker UI component. The next step is the search criteria. We can see that there are criteria that are already selected here, and they are defaulted based on the previous screen. Here we can modify them or add additional ones. Since there are many different combinations of specifying the search, filter, and sort criteria, the screen is designed as a dynamic screen. This means that the groups will expand as more criteria are added, and the screen will become scrollable to accommodate all selections. As a demonstration, we'll add the new search criteria. We simply click here and expand the drop-down to make the selection of our choice. This behavior is consistent throughout all the components on the screen, so when the user learns how to use it in one place, they can apply the same experience to different portions as well. After making the selection, we can click on the search button and view the list of results. The application searches the hotel database, and based on the search criteria, It finds and displays a list of hotels that satisfy all of them in a condensed form for easy review. Only the bare essential information is provided for comparison purposes. This information is sufficient for the user to make a comparison between different hotels, and when they are ready to see more details, they can do so by selecting here. This screen contains all the details provided by the hotel. The application fetches the information from the hotel database, so this information should be very up-to-date and contain pertinent sales and other promotions. Before going forward with reviewing the details about this hotel, many users, me included, review what other people had to say about this particular hotel, and this information is easily and conveniently accessible near the top of the screen by selecting the View User Reviews button. Here, we can find a scrollable list of all the reviews left by the previous guests of this hotel. As always, the reviews are given in a condensed form in the list, but they can be expanded on demand. This behavior is consistent with the previous list that we had. I think I like what I see for this hotel, so the next step is actually requesting a reservation. This is completed through the Hotel Details screen. We go back to the Hotel Details and scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. Here we find details about check-in and check-out times, an overview of the room we are getting for our stay there, as well as other information that can be displayed as noted by my post-it note. To complete the reservation, we only need to select the Book My Hotel Room Now button, and we get the confirmation screen congratulating us on the great purchase. We can just click OK to be taken back to the final point of interest screen. At this point, the reservation is complete, and we can continue with the trip planning process or leave the application if we desire to. All the data is automatically saved, so no action is required by the user. The social media feature is independent from the rest of the features in the application, and therefore is accessible by selecting the specified icon from almost all of the screens that contain it. As we can see, selecting the icon from the application's main screen will take us to the social media wall. The social media wall displays a list of the latest posts from all the social media accounts that the user has specified. Displaying all of the posts in one location was decided by the principle of structure. Having all the posts in one place saves the user time and provides one central location where the user can view all the communication with his friends as well as post to any of the accounts from there. Each post is identified with the icon and the corresponding social provider so the user exactly knows where the post is being sourced from. The number of accounts that the user can view is not limited in any way, so there could be numerous posts that are displayed at all time. To accommodate displaying as many posts as possible, all the posts are displayed in a collapsed form on the screen with an option for expanding if desired. As we can see, when we select to view the entire post, the text as well as the picture, if available, is displayed on the screen, pushing out the other posts off the screen on the bottom. All the posts are still there and are easily accessible by scrolling down the screen. The process of creation of a new post is very easily accomplished through the simple user interface. We simply select the plus button that displays a new pop-up window. The required contents are self-explanatory. In order to create a new post, the interface requires an account. Since the users are more likely to recognize the social media name than remember it, the interface provides a drop-down menu with the name of all the social media accounts that the user configured in the Journey application. We'll select Facebook for the purposes of the example. Next is attaching an optional image to share in the post. I like cars, so I'll select this nice Ferrari for my example. Click Attach, and the image name is displayed here so the user knows that the operation has succeeded. Add some text if desired to accompany the image, and share. We can see the new post showing up at the top of the screen with the icon identifying the social media, my username, and part of the text, as I described before. Additional features that we discussed to expand this functionality is filtering and sorting capability accessed from the Options menu. This will provide additional control in sifting through the rich social life of the user with less effort than usual. Another consideration that we had is to provide access to the native social media application for additional features that are not currently accessible from our interface. When analyzing the feature, we quickly realized that each social media service has something unique to it and different from the rest of them. So instead of trying to customize our user interface to thoroughly address all possible social media services, we decided to provide a simple interface that provide the basic functionality and provide a way for the user to call the native application if needed. This calling will be accomplished through selecting the icon in any post. Upon selection, the installed native application will be executed and brought in focus instead of the Journey app.
This section demonstrates the journaling feature in the Journey app. The journaling feature allows users to create a journal of memorable moments from their trip. This feature can be accessed directly from the main menu by selecting the book icon. It is also available from the pull-down menu at the top left. Next, the user is prompted to select a trip to journal. This selection is based on the trips that the user has saved to his or her profile. Notice that a bird's eye view of the route is also displayed to remind the user of each trip in case he or she does not remember it by name alone. This demonstrates the principle of recognition, where it is easier for the user to recognize something than to recall it. If a user is not authenticated or does not have any trips saved, a tutorial version of the journal would be shown using coach marks to highlight key features of the journal. I'll show an example of this in a moment. It's important to note that all screens within the Journey app are supported in both landscape and portrait orientation. This capability can provide a better user experience, particularly with regard to viewing maps, where a user could choose between a taller or wider display. But it also presents some challenges. In the case of the journal feature, we wanted to provide a visual clue about the orientation so that the user would not miss the opportunity to use the landscape format, which seems like a more natural fit for the dimensions of a journal. We chose to offer the orientation icon to toggle between the displays. The display would rotate when the icon is toggled, and the user may or may not physically rotate the screen. If the user physically rotates the screen, the display would automatically be adjusted without pressing the icon. For the purposes of this demonstration, the remaining screens will be shown using the landscape format. This is the main screen for the journal feature. The software displays the most recent journal pages for the selected trip. In order to add a page to the journal, the user clicks the plus icon, demonstrating the principle of consistency, since this is the same icon that is used on the main screen to add a trip. The user can use common gestures for navigating the journal. This includes swiping left or right to advance to the next or previous page, or pinching to zoom in on a specific page. The user can go directly to the beginning or end of the book by using the arrows at the bottom. And notice that the orientation icon is also displayed. Along the top of the journal, 3 options are presented to the user. Number 1, Configure Journal. This could include selections such as page size, page color, or type of cover, hard or soft. Number 2, Open a different journal. This would return the user to the trip selection screen. Number 3, Order a journal, which would initiate a purchasing sequence. This is an example of the tutorial screen that I mentioned, which would be shown to a user who is not authenticated or who doesn't have any trips saved. Notice that a context-sensitive control is provided to either create an account or plan a trip depending on their status. This tutorial screen was included since users become frustrated if they are locked out from tasks or forced to create an account before they really know what they're signing up for. This way, by reading the coach marks in the tutorial version, the user can get a taste of what the capabilities of the journal feature are and make an informed decision. back to the demo. Once the user selects the plus icon to add a page, a menu is presented to select page format. The user can add things such as a cover page, a page with photos only, a page with text only, or a page showing a map of the trip. Notice that as the page format is selected, the format selector is dynamically updated with formats for the user to choose from. An alternative design that we considered was to provide a fixed template including just one object where the user would choose between text entry or photo entry. Based on feedback we received from peers and our professor, we agreed this approach was too restrictive and we wanted to provide more flexibility to the users. In this example, the user has selected a 3-photo collage. When the user taps on an empty photo frame, a menu is provided for the user to specify whether they would like to take a photo, choose photo from library, or cancel. The option to take a photo was necessitated by the task analysis, where we contend that users who are executing a trip might like to create a journal in real time, whereas the option to choose a photo from the library might lend itself better to users whose trip has already been completed. Some page formats include fields for text entry as well. In this case, when the user taps on an empty text box, an alphanumeric keyboard is provided for the user to input or dictate a comment. Note that the entire process to make a journal entry can be completed in 5 interactions or less. This completes the demonstration of the journal entry.
When we began the process of gathering the requirements for this application, we started from our own experiences and things that we observed over our travels. We decided to design something that we would like to use, and that would help us in planning the experience with less effort than currently required. The process of defining the basic requirements was surprisingly shorter than the process of deciding how to design the screens and assign the functionality to each screen. But after 2 or 3 iterations and feedback that we got from our teammates that reviewed our user interface, as well as our professor, we settled on a mobile application that runs on a smartphone or a tablet. We began the iterations by defining basic requirements that we later used to create use cases. There, we specified how the system would respond to every user action, which has a great influence on our later design. As part of our design process, we created user profiles of our target group of users. This effort helped us in focusing the design of the UI by consciously taking into consideration all the needs of our users, as well as the constraints of the environment in which they are using our app. Later iterations brought more refinements or sometimes questioned the previous decisions, so we went back and tweaked our design. The final product from this design process is a full set of user interface mockups that, along with the functional requirements, will help the software engineers start the functional prototyping work. When we started this process, we had many more ideas of what we would like to accomplish for this application, but after a short while, it became apparent that the complexity of the desired functionality will not be achievable in the allowed time frame. Although we did not work on these applications, I would like to mention them here as food for thought. Initially, we contemplated of creating a 2-part application. One would be the desktop application that would have a full set of capabilities for creating and editing a trip, as well as more robust searching and filtering capabilities. The mobile application will be more of a trip execution and experience enhancement application that can also be used to make quick modifications of the trip. The large real estate of the desktop application is well suited for viewing long lists of points of interest as well as maps and pictures. The mobile application is well suited for viewing the progress of your trip, posting reviews, capturing images, and uploading them to the cloud and various small tasks. The other functionality that we considered is the capability of collaborating on the trip planning process. I have a group of friends who are scattered in 3 or 4 states which take at least one annual trip together. The way they plan is that they send emails with all the details and everyone replies and forwards and suggests point of interest. And by the time the trip actually is organized, the email chain is so long that it's hard to understand what was decided and what was forgotten, so a lot of time, some good ideas are lost in the noise. We were envisioning a collaborative feature where multiple users that have separate accounts can join a trip, which means that they have access to the trip resources and itineraries. They can recommend points of interest, hotels, destinations, etc., and the group needs to vote and decide whether the suggestions gets put in the itinerary or not. This would make a great tool for my friends. In conclusion, the process of creating the user interface is still a very creative task, and many of the design decisions will be based on aesthetics, but still there is a specific and repeatable process how to go about and decide what the user interface will accomplish, and what is the expectation from it. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention, and have a great day.